Everyone. It's always interesting when you start a live stream and your mic is unplugged. Um, as you're coming into this session, just let me know that you can see and hear me okay. I just want to make sure I don't have any audio hiccups. That was a little weird way to get started, but it's all good. Um, Thank you so much for being here. As always, happy to show up. I hope that this kind of theme for our live session today will be interesting to the audience because we really want to start to think about how we can differentiate ourselves. What are the skills that we're going to need in an AI driven world? And we'll actually talk about the funny aspect of this title at some point during this live session, not yet. So, as always, again, thank you so much for being here. And let's go backwards before we go forwards. If you haven't had a chance to check out yesterday's video, it's all about what to do if you've been laid off and how to go through those job search processes from beginning to middle to end. And some of it's a recap of former content that I've created, but I wanted to kind of capture it and bucket it all in one video. I think the videos, it's over 20 minutes. As always, I'm low and slow. So always consider speeding me up a little bit. I think what you'll find is at a 1.2, 1.4, and for some people, even a 2x, you can watch me at that speed. Uh, it is not great for my YouTube analytics to have you watch me on 2x, but remember, I'm not about that. I really want to make sure that everybody who's watching my content is getting value. And I always kind of make this comment that I do all my learning on 2x. And some people think that's crazy, but if you actually listen to a lot of educational items on 2x, I just recommend trying it. I can still ingest and get all the information I need at that speed. And I actually like that speed. If it's slower, it's not coming through fast enough for me. So it's always interesting, right? So if you haven't had a chance to check out that video, please do. So again, in our downtime today, when we're not answering questions, we're going to talk about the most valuable skills to have in an AI-driven world. As you're coming into this session, say hello. Let me know where you're visiting from. Any questions, any comments, everything is on the table today. So just always I think some people get confused. Like, as a YouTube creator, I need to create some excitement about the topic area, but I also only show up once a week for the community to answer questions. So I just want to make sure that we take care of everything today. So let me just spend a second prompting on my services, and then we'll dive right in. I do want to offer a 20% coupon code for the course. So if you just use the coupon code AI, you get 20% off of our interview mastery course. As I've mentioned, I updated that course to have AI modules late last year. So it's relevant, it's fresh, and you can get into the weeds much, much quicker. Obviously, with our AI practice interview tool, I'm going to start to introduce this. We're going to start adding people to our wait list. And the wait list is to beta test App Academy. So the course is incredibly robust. It has all the exercises, but we're going to build in a smaller App Academy into the app to just allow people to kind of understand why we're talking about each item. The course is going to be much more robust with exercises, et cetera, but just something to consider. And of course, I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy. That's mostly resume and LinkedIn advice. So if you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. New original content, long form every Monday, and I'll continue to do shorts when I can. And if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe, and my business is practiceinterviews.com. Okay, let's dive in. Looks like we have a small audience to start, so hopefully we can get engaged and have a good conversation today. Hey, okay, good morning. How are you doing today? I'm doing good, thank you. Quick question. In today's market, for someone who's currently a principal customer/sales engineer at a public cyber security company, 6K employees, okay, would it be a fair ask in terms of comp percentage increase to a Series A startup minus 50 employees in the same space? And what's a fair equity share to ask for? Also, on a visa, is it worth the risk? They're funded for 2 years. Okay, so everything is risky in today's job market. So I never want to really push to stay or make moves, but we make moves when we feel like we've hit that time where we've stopped learning, where we've realized we can't get a good boss at our organization, where we feel like the compensation has gotten stagnant. So let's talk about anchoring for a minute. I'm reading this fantastic book called Influence. I can't remember the name of the author, but you'll find it. It's a very famous book, apparently, that I didn't know about and I just started reading. But here's why anchoring is so powerful in job negotiations. First things first, Harvard did a study that showed that 100% of people cannot remove an anchor once they've heard it. They anchor to that number. But here's the more important reason why, and I'm kind of learning this from this Influence book. And again, I'm so excited. I was listening to it early this morning and I just kind of got pumped up about it. But when we anchor high and then we start to make concessions, we seem so much more reasonable. And so there's reciprocity there. They're going to be more likely to be more yielding as we come down from our anchor. We look more reasonable, even though the anchor was just a ridiculous high number to set a tone. So the power of anchoring is so powerful and impactful. And it's important to know that if you anchor 30% above what you want with a startup, they might just rescind the offer. So kind of understand their negotiation strategy beforehand. But it's just a really, really interesting topic. I hope that helps. If it didn't answer your question, please let me know. Hey, Liz, good to have you here as always. Hey, Patrick, thanks for being here. Love today's title. Title? What did I just say there? It's always funny when your brain doesn't work during these live sessions. Love today's title. You're polishing your new script agent tool, something I think you will find useful. We'll send a link later. Awesome. So, I mean, we're warmed up enough into this session to talk about it. I had a few titles planned for this live stream and I just wasn't happy with them. So I ran the titles through GPT and I said, hey, come up with a better title. And it came up with this title. And then I did a Google search and I found this exact title multiple times. What do you think happened? Well, I know what happened. The people who used this title did the same thing I did and had GPT or Claude or Llama or whatever create it. I just thought that was really funny that we were getting to a title for a video that AI had generated, and clearly it had done it because it was repetitive. And I want to say it's like a super unique thread, but it's unique enough that I feel like this is an AI produced one. And I can tell you it was AI produced for me personally. So we will chat more about this subject as we get into things. I'll ask a question since it's slow for now. Thank you. It is slow. So let's get all these questions. I love it. The engagement. Is it necessary to use incoming job title for the upcoming new role? Is it necessary to use incoming plus job title for the upcoming new role? I'm not sure I understand that. Let's see. Or maybe I should just wait to the official start date and then officially announce I start a new role. Any thoughts on this? Oh, I really like for everything to be cleared, finalized, everything before we do any announcements. There's just always funky things that happen. If you want to play it really safe, you make the announcement on day one so that you've actually joined the organization, you're there. The latter is probably my preference, to just kind of day one, have it drafted, ready to send out, make those changes day one. It's really up to you. But I just like to play it a little bit safe based on the current economic conditions and everything that's going on, but I don't think it matters too much either way. Okay. Recently, I see LinkedIn Connections reposting openings to their network. This reveals the HM, and I've tried connecting or asking for a brief chat, suggesting for 10 minutes. I'm getting zero response. Okay. we know they need someone, so I consider this as a bad sign. I don't want to just apply. What do you recommend to move on or apply anyway? Okay, so I don't recommend this strategy at all, Liz. And the reason why is because it's it's not a give first model, right? And I know that that's, obviously I'm always going to give feedback in a gracious and kind way, but the reality is that so many people have been taught, I don't know why, to message in a way like, I'd love to learn more about you and your business. I'd love to learn more about your roles. I'd love to connect and talk. That is extremely self-driven and 100% self-driven. And again, this isn't a critique of you, Liz. This is technically a best practice that has been shared over and over and over again, but it's not a best practice. It's a bad practice. You're asking for that person's time, and most people don't have it. And then when it gets publicly posted like that, that person's probably getting hit 50, 100, 150, 200 times asking if they'll take the time to speak with somebody. And so what's going to happen instantly is they're going to shut down and not talk to anybody. And again, I just want to always reiterate that I went through this experience so many times at Google. I'd get hit up hundreds of times a week, literally hundreds of times a week. Jeff, hop on a call with me, help me find out my jobs, find me a job. And it was just, I shut down. I couldn't help anybody because it was all the same and I would have never gotten my job done. So I hope that context helps. So instead, I know it seems counterintuitive, but you send to that hiring manager, Sue, hey, Sue, saw you're hiring for a job. Just wanted to show you like the trend that's going on in this industry with this job. Just thought you might find it interesting. It's different. Will it work? Probably not, but it's a better strategy than asking for their time. I know that's long-winded, Liz, but I hope that helps. They do need somebody, but they also don't need somebody so much that they're going to spend time with everybody who comes to them asking them for their time. I hope that helps. Hey, Daphne, good to have you here. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but great to have you as always. Thanks, Jeff. Is comparing benefits and sharing current pay to the startup recommended so that they can understand the background, as many times their benefits 401k match don't match? Not right away. I mean, it like a lot of this depends on location, right? So like in the US, there was a court case in Massachusetts that basically shut down US companies' ability to take current compensation into consideration, which actually is ridiculous. Like, it should be, can't take it into consideration when it hurts us, but can be taken into consideration when it helps us, because that kind of hurt the candidates where it would help them. In other countries, it's a little bit more common or more popular, but I kind of want you to press for what you want and then potentially use current numbers as a backup. That would be my recommended path. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, any chance the offer can be rejected by recruiting VP? I was told my offer was sent up for approval, but I have not seen it yet. Oh, I probably want more data, but like I definitely know that a chance to offer being rejected by recruiting VP. I'm gonna kick this back to you. What company is it? If you don't feel comfortable sharing the company, but like I can tell you if it is Google, for example, if hiring committee and then they brought back executive review to just double check and approve positions, which wouldn't be in recruiting. It would be more on the product area leadership side of things. And usually that's approved. There's not a high percentage of those cases that are not approved. They're just doing double checks. That's all. Oh, and it looks like here I can pop down and then I'll come back to you, Patrick. I'd love to hear some cool benefits you found valuable while working at Google. I'm personally stoked for the free lunches. Okay, so let's take a step back. It is Google. So yes, this is just an additional step. After they so historical context wise is like back in the day when they hired people for a long, long, long time, Larry and Sergey were reviewing all packets. I know that sounds crazy. And then obviously they just got way too big and they were way too busy for that. And then they had executive review. So leadership would review the packets. And this went on for years and years and years. And it was ridiculous. It was just not necessary. And so finally, they removed it completely. But after they went through the freeze and then the 12,000 person layoff, they brought executive review back specifically to just double check that the positions really needed to be hired for. We could argue for or against taking that step, obviously, but that is a step that they've now included, and it should be like pretty quick overall. So you should hear back soon. In regards to the perks, basically, I think that the food was the number one perk by far. And you can take really good advantage of the food: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks, coffee. I love caffeine. So if you haven't been able to tell from these live sessions, but I love caffeine. So, like, all those things, smoothies, all the amazing benefits of the food. And when I would negotiate with candidates, I'd say, and there's free food. And they'd say, I don't care. But I'd kind of push back and say, well, it's not only the value of the money that you save on the free food, it's the food prep time, it's having to leave. And of course, that's to their benefit, so you don't leave. But the food quality is extremely high. Be aware that if you're not familiar, freshman 15, a lot of people, when they go to college, they put on 15 pounds. It's the same thing with Google. It's the Google 15. So much good free food that you will put on weight. And I definitely put on a good 15 to 20 pounds because I was just eating so much food. So the other nice perk is the free gyms. So you can go work off all the food you eat. So like I definitely took advantage of the food. I was probably in the top 5% for just how much I ate there. And I spent a lot of time on campus. But the free gyms was another just great perk that I enjoyed. And then obviously, where I lived was like 3 blocks away from the shuttle, 2 or 3 blocks. It was super, super close. So sometimes I would just take the shuttle if I didn't feel like driving in. And I thought that was a great perk as well. Obviously, the compensation, all the benefits are great. To clarify my prior question, my question whether I can just incoming plus title as my LinkedIn headline, or should I wait for my start date? Not sure whether it'll make a difference from a networking perspective. Sorry about the confusion. Yeah, you can always add incoming to your headline. The headline of your LinkedIn profile is such a great opportunity to change and edit and play around with. And if you were to look at my profile over the last year, the amount of times that I changed my banner, changed my headline, it's significant. I'm trying to figure out what's the call to action that's going to work for my audience, right? So I'm always playing around with those things. It's really up to you, Patrick. I don't really see it benefiting you to put it on that early because you're not really networking when you haven't started yet, but obviously up to you. Yeah. The Google 15. Just be careful. It happens to the best of us. You literally see it with people. They join and then you're like, oh, okay. And I actually will tell a funny story because we're 19 minutes in and we don't have any additional questions. It's super, super sleepy today. I came back. So when I moved up to the Bay, I left my significant other in San Diego. And so I was flying back every 3 out of a month. I'd fly back 3 weeks and she'd fly up to San Jose once a week. And I remember coming down to the beach and my friends like making fun of me because I had put on so much weight. Anyway, it is what it is. Okay, so this is a really, really slow session. We have a small audience. We're 20 minutes in. So I just want As any other additional questions, thoughts come in, I was definitely late in getting this thumbnail up. And I think sometimes, not sometimes, I actually know that the AI, when the theme is AI, it actually causes people to shut down and it gets way less views. And I've done a lot of live sessions on AI, and I almost always anticipate that these sessions are going to be super slow. Why? Well, one, people are scared, and two, people don't believe it. And so let's kind of dive in as additional questions come in. I'm happy to answer them. And if we have a super sleepy, slow live session, that's okay. But let's talk about the most valuable skills in an AI driven world. And it all starts here, right? It all starts with your communication skills and how you talk to people, how you share information. It's all starting right here. So, how do we increase and enhance communication skills? I personally think the best way is, well, it's really two items. It's books and online content. And the more you consume and understand basic communication skills, you will go so much farther. Warning, once you start to take in these skills, you're not going to be able to unlearn them. So sometimes communicating with people can be challenging because you've learned all the proper communication skills and you see how other people communicate, and that's okay. It's just something to recognize and acknowledge. But in an AI driven world, our default and number one communication skill that needs to be the most important is active listening. We need to stop talking. We need to build the space. We need to stop interrupting. Space is powerful. And so, building in space and active listening, hands down to me, of all the communication strategies that are going to keep us a little bit more insulated from AI, active listening is number one. Then we bring in the human emotional items, right? Compassion, empathy, awareness. And if we really were to talk about awareness, we can kind of uptick that to being the number one communication style or just the number one skill. Because when we have an overall awareness of ourselves and our environment, we tend to do better in the communication space. If we're not aware of what we're doing, it's not going to be helpful. And so, of course, this is the irony of these sessions is I'm just talking, but in the real world, I tend to be a default sit back, active listen, and extremely attentive, because I actually find that when you're extremely attentive, it's usually pretty interesting to sit back and listen. Okay, so we have a few more questions coming in, comments coming in, so I'll pause there, but start to think through, what do you think are some of the most valuable skills in an AI driven world? And let's start to talk through them. Do you think with the recent economic headwinds, there'll be any big tech layoffs? 100%. This is, just call this the new normal, right? So big tech layoffs will be a part of the future in perpetuity. It's never going to stop. And these companies, my strong belief is that these companies will get smaller and smaller and smaller over time. They're just going to automate out the jobs. And if we think that they're not going to do that, you've seen enough bad practices, people getting laid off the way that Meta just did it, the way that federal workers are getting laid off in the US, even the way that Google did it, firing people on maternity, paternity leave, sick leave, disability leave. They don't care. They just don't care about you as an employee. It doesn't mean that we don't take advantage of the money or the branding or the perks or the benefits, but it's just to understand we now need to go into complete protection mode. We are going to protect ourselves at all costs. It doesn't mean we're not going to do things from a high moral standard. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be a good employee, but we also need to protect ourselves. Because I think that the big tech layoffs are going to keep coming. It's not meant to be a gloom and doom. It's just the reality. If they can do things cheaper, and they can with AI, they will do it. For my official new role announcement on LinkedIn, I'm planning to write a note myself, plus with some picture of the team since I'll be visiting HQ this week and have team events. I know we went through this before. My manager is going to introduce me to people during my visit. Anything I should be aware of to give a good first impression? Really, really powerful question. I remember you mentioned about active listening and asking questions about themselves, like what they love. Anything I am missing from this list? No, just like great energy and enthusiasm, big smiles, like nice warm handshakes, nice eye contact. Those are all going to be powerful too, but just listen, build in the space. Tell me more about that. Like, so somebody ends a sentence, and that's what I really love about X. Oh, can you tell me a little more? That sounds really exciting. So you kind of engage and you keep kind of chopping into it, and no cursory questions that are just thrown out there to throw them out there. Really engage. And when we active listen, we're taking in the information in a completely different way. And it allows us to ask more effective questions. If they ask questions about you, of course, be willing to answer them, but get them talking about themselves. It's a great way to make a first impression. And some of the questions can be like, what is going to be the most valuable thing I can do from day one to help you be more successful in your job? Your job. Like, we're making it about them. I hope that helps. But yeah, same kind of tips that I had before. Would you say the giving model applies more to big tech? I mean, I see a good opportunity in my tiny market. The opening is a good match to skills and interests and will go fast. I need to apply. Follow up in the coming weeks, I guess. The gist here is I don't have a long time, need a new role ASAP. And Liz, that's how everybody thinks, right? And so, like, the give first model is it's a long-term model. It's not a model that's meant to be for the short term. When we need roles ASAP, we default to applying and utilizing tactics that are less successful percentage-wise. It's just a percentages game. And I think everybody has probably spent, well, the people who are here, we have a small audience today, know that I operate only in a data-driven world, right? So I don't coach when we can apply data to those items, because I don't want to coach or teach anything that's based on my gut feeling. I want to deal with logic, and I back a ton of that up by reading over a book a week and doing tons of research and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes we just need to get after it because the timing is short. But the giving model is something that we should be doing every single day, all the time. We're trying to build up that social capital so that ultimately one or multiple people will come back to us. But yeah, I get it. It's just applying. It's not working anymore. It's just not working. And it's not to say that people aren't getting jobs through applications. It's just, if you are one of those people, you're in a small percentage, right? So again, the give first model is really rough and tough for people to understand. And I get it, because you need something and you're trying to get it by not asking for something. So it's very, very counterintuitive. And just understand that 99% of people are going to ask for something. So when you give, it feels very different. And there's reciprocity, right? Reciprocity is a human behavior that we use all the time. Like, when you give somebody something, there's that feeling of reciprocity where sometimes they just want to give you something back. It's not going to be 100% of people, but what's going on from a cognitive psychology perspective when it comes to reciprocity is really important, and something that you, I don't know, can do some research on or want to think through. But yeah, I get it. Sometimes we just want the job ASAP. Totally understand. Thanks again for the suggestions, Jeff. As always, back to the topic. My very thought on this topic is the networking skill. I feel like networking is really the key nowadays in all aspects. And it always has been. Networking has always been the key aspect. And, again, like, I know it's probably such an annoying comment, but the joke between all of us content creators in the career space is that nobody watches our networking content. And that's the most powerful content because the needle doesn't really move in the job search area without the ability to network. We get lucky through applying, but nobody watches the networking content. And it's like, it's really easy. It's the same stuff with like the LinkedIn profile, right? Creating a very powerful, thorough LinkedIn profile is very easy. And people say that they don't know how to do it. Well, I've done 20 or 30 videos on it, right? So the information is there. It's just our ability to kind of take the information and apply it, like anything in life, right? Also, quick question related to networking. Any resources for me to find the updated person in networking events? I don't understand that question. Any resources, like, I'm not sure I understand the question, Patrick. Maybe you can re-ask it. Because in a networking event, what a kind of updated information, I don't know who's going to be at that event, or are we talking about if we do know they're going to be at the event? Hi, thanks for being here. I do understand the giving model and it feels good to give. It also feels good to be appreciated and build new connections. I'm having trouble trusting it will give results in cash income / work opportunities. Well, I mean, always like my advice is only good, Liz, if you believe it. And trust me, I know that you trust me. Like I get that. I'm not doubting that at all. So do both. If you feel the urgency and need to make money and you feel like you have to apply and jump on things and reach out to people and let them know that you need the job or whatever it might be, sure. And give. Do both. Because again, that giving model is just, it works. So why do I know it works? Well, let's flash back to one of the worst times for the economy in the US, which was the end of 2009. We had gone through the housing market crash. Everybody was laid off. And I got laid off. I didn't really get laid off. I got fired. But it was at the time that everybody was getting laid off. And the reality is that what I did was I got up and I spent 4 to 6 hours a day on LinkedIn and I networked and I gave. I ended up, I mean, at one point I was like doing fundraising for a high school men's swim team. I mean, yeah, I live at the beach, so I swim in the ocean, of course, but like I never met any of these people, but I just did reach outs because I thought this person was a good person to network. And I just gave. And ultimately I ended up with multiple job offers by using this approach, and it works. But yeah, both can be a good path. Okay. Both settled. Liz, you've been here long enough to know that I fumble over my words all the time. So no worries. But yeah, I think trying both strategies will be effective for you. Sorry again about the confusion. I'm wondering whether there's any websites to have all the most updates, in-person networking events, especially hosted by companies themselves, Google and Amazon. Therefore, it's easy to get to those events and network with the people in person. Typically, typically big tech companies aren't doing like open networking. It's more likely to be like an invite only scenario, and in most cases those would be invite only to do like batch interviewing, which isn't really done anymore since COVID. So you should always be looking up local networking events and trying to go to them. But like, I just want to go back to this for a second. Yeah, again, like Google and Amazon, like they're not going to just host an event and say, hey, anybody who was looking to join Google or Amazon, come to this event. The line would be miles long, right? So it's just understanding. I think sometimes It's talking about the demand for these positions at these companies is so high. So networking events is I want you to keep a pulse on networking events. I also want you to start at this job. And I don't want to be so forward thinking. Like, of course, forward think, like plan the long term roadmap for your career and for yourself. But um, these kinds of companies typically don't do those types of events. I hope that's helpful. Appreciate the candor. It's encouraging. I keep learning and growing and building up my portfolio. Now I need to switch gears and concentrate on job search activities until I have a role. So let's put out the challenge, Liz. And this is like something that I don't know if we talked about this last week, but the challenge is, what if you couldn't apply? What if we just removed that option from your ability to find a job in job search mode? What would happen? Well, my best guess is you and anybody else would have to get super, super creative in how you go about your job search. And it would force creativity in such a unique way that you end up landing a job sooner. I think having this default and fallback to applying, it's like, it just kind of gives us an out to say, well, I applied to 10 jobs today, so I'm good. It's like, well, you're not good because 3% of candidates are getting jobs through applications. So those 10 applications didn't really do much. What if you just said, hey, I did 3 LinkedIn recommendations. I did 5 give first reach outs on LinkedIn, and I went to 1 community service event and 1 networking event all in the same day. I know that would be a busy day, but if you took that kind of model, my best guess is that it would happen a lot sooner. Yeah. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the live. I'm following up. I'm following you for a very long time. Appreciate you coming to live, irrespective of less views. I'm writing today because I gave an interview with G recently for an L4 role. It's been 2 weeks, but I haven't heard anything yet. Followed up with HR, but he isn't responding. Is it a red flag? Or is G taking this much time lately? They're always super slow. And so you followed up. It's kind of that like 5 business day rule. So you haven't heard back, follow up after 5 business days, then follow up after 5 business days. And then if it gets to be like 3 weeks, I'm kind of like now saying like, if it goes to 3 full weeks, that we should start using this. So if you hit 3 full weeks and you haven't heard back from him, Google-candidate-support@google.com. Hey, I interviewed 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard back from my recruiter, just trying to get next steps. This is an offshore team and you'll hear back within 24 hours. I've talked so much about this and I know it's just like a broken record at this point, but it's totally ridiculous to not hear back for 2 weeks. That is just 100% an indication that your recruiter is super, super, super unorganized, because it's not a hard job. And it's definitely not a hard job at Google. Look, it's hard to get people through the interview process and get them to pass and then get them to accept the job. I want to recognize that. For the recruiters who are doing recruiting and sourcing at Google, it is very hard. But to be organized and follow up and have a clean inbox, a clean applicant tracking system, and a clean calendar, and know how to follow up with people who are actively in the process is the easiest skill in the world. A 3rd grader could do it. And it just gets so tiresome that this is just repetitive and that I'm hearing about this literally almost every day, whether it's live, YouTube comments, LinkedIn, Slack. It happens every day to somebody. So use this if you need to. That's helpful for the in-person networking events. Thank you. Also, sorry to cause too much confusion for my initial questions. Cannot type either today. No worries, Patrick. You're keeping the engagement good in a slow session today, so I appreciate it. My comment to you, and again, I want to outline this with the most graciousness and kindness, is that you've had some time between kind of knowing you were going to transition jobs to this new job. And I just kind of want you to let the things happen. Just relax, enjoy it, enjoy the fact that you're taking on this new position, that you're excited about the position and company. Um, and the job will come with stress and anxiety. So just, feeling really good and comfortable and relaxed before you go in. And even as you meet with the team, it's going to be really important. Yeah, we want to start to think about the future, but don't let it overwhelm you either. You are welcome. Okay. 40 minutes in. That's really sleepy session. I don't think we haven't gotten to an hour in a long time, but I think we probably won't hit an hour today. I'll just kind of pause for a moment, see if any additional questions are coming in. Let's talk about, again, the most valuable skills in an AI-driven world. And then I'll get to any additional comments coming in. Again, my default is communication. And I just want people to be thinking about, well, what are the jobs where we need to communicate? And it's not that we can't communicate through AI and through tools, but the jobs where we really need to bring people together and organize people. So, obviously anything in the project or program management space, I love, because that's really bringing people together, discussing ideas and concepts. I think those roles are pretty safe. Product is also very safe because of ideating across different teams and sharing information and best practices. I even think analytical roles where AI can do a bunch of the analytical work, but then we're going and sharing those results and chatting through it with people. There's a lot of roles where obviously all roles communication is necessary, but we're really communicating and sharing ideas across larger groups of people. Those are going to be some of the best roles. And so just read books on communication, watch content on communication. Of course, the foundational book on communication is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Start there and then kind of build from there. But it will teach you some really, really critical tactics. So that's a good one to start with. Jeff, I wanted to share something. While some Googlers follow Googleyness outside of work too by referring or giving guidance, while some are so arrogant, 99%, your thoughts? I wouldn't say that 99% are arrogant. Again, percentages are percentages, right? There is obviously some arrogance that goes with the role. But I didn't personally experience it that way. I think it's more of a 50-50. Half the people feel very arrogant because they're there, and half the people feel fortunate. They feel gratitude, and they're gracious and kind people. I think over time, the arrogance builds. So usually the newer employees are the more googly ones, and then the arrogance can build over time. But again, I couldn't put a percentage to it. I hope that everybody's practicing Googleyness. I think it was easier when the company was smaller. It's a little bit harder now. And I don't believe that Google is fulfilling the checks and balances that are necessary. Now, maybe they're being tougher now, but when I was there, we did manager reviews. I mean, I had a manager who constantly got bad reviews, team after team, and they would just move this person around, and they refused to fire this person. And this person actually caused so many people to leave the organization or leave their team that they had no checks and balances. They left Google and came back. And I never got asked for, I know they came back while I was still there. I never got asked for an internal reference about this person. I would have totally blocked them. They were not googly. They did not belong at the organization. It was a really long-winded answer, but some of the checks and balances for keeping people on that googliness scale is also not in place. That was long-winded. I don't know what just happened there, but I went on a tangent. I hope that helps. Will do. That's why I got this upcoming trip lined up to Sunnyvale for a friend visit. Just hard not to think about everything and purely relax. Feel like I need to take the meditation more seriously. Yeah, and of course, we can go into all the mindset stuff, right? Everything is interconnected and intertwined, right? So one of the best ways to have a more calm and balanced mindset is meditation. And meditation is challenging. It's called a meditation practice for a reason. You have to practice meditation. It doesn't just come naturally. Also, here's the other unique thing about meditation. Many meditations are guided, but there's a percentage of the population that can't picture things in their mind. They can create context, but they can't picture it. How do I know that? I'm one of those people. So if you say, hey, Jeff, picture an apple, I know exactly what an apple looks like. I know the size, I know the shape, but a picture is not created in my mind. It's just the context of the apple. It's a weird thing, right? I know this is like a weird thing to talk about. We're slow today, so we're just having some fun, but it's actually about 20% of the population can't picture things in their mind. So I say, picture Bob, Sue, or Jane. I can't even picture my wife in my mind. I know exactly what she looks like, but there's no picture being created. And so even like I can't do guided meditations, which I did for years, and I didn't understand why it wasn't effective. So we just need to play around with meditation. It's something that I do every morning. I do it while breathing and doing yoga. And I've built that in as my meditation to do counting. And I found that to be very helpful. I know that was, again, I'm being crazy long-winded. I'm just trying to stretch and see if we get more questions. Thank you very much for today, Jeff. I hear you, and we'll continue to pursue both avenues, applying and giving. And I will also get more creative and report back next week. Be bold, be different, do something different. Let's go back to 2010. So I basically went in and I was asked by one company to do a pitch. So I went in and I did a pitch, and I actually brought in a baseball, and I actually brought in baseballs for everybody who was in that meeting. And I wrote my LinkedIn profile on the baseball, and I handed out baseballs to everybody. They're like $5 a baseball. I was poor. I was out of a job, but I did it. That company offered me a job. And then I went in for another interview, and they weren't going to offer me the job. But I went back 3 days later with a social media business plan, a 2-page written plan. I went in, I delivered it in person, and they hired me. That was the level of creativity I was willing to go to. Now, that was easier because that was more in person. It's tougher to do it virtually, but those are some crazy creative strategies, right? Like bringing baseballs to a networking event, or like writing out a business plan. But I knew I had to be different because the economy was so rough at that time, and it led to 2 job offers at the same time. So as creative as possible is great. Thanks, Jeff, for spoiling me. So many questions answered. Super satisfied. Awesome. Thank you for keeping the engagement going. Really appreciated. Because the onboarding stuff and like how we communicate and how we think about jobs and how we think about updating our LinkedIn profile, all these things are important to everybody. Thanks for all the answers, Jeff. For comp, can you double click on Anchor High? Would you consider their equity given it's still paper money Series A to ask them to match the RSU refreshers by cash? I don't think that's money. I claim that to be zero. So you can push on the equity if you see the long-term vision of the company, but if we're talking about a 50-person company, that equity is $0. I'm just going to always zero out the equity unless those shares can be sold on a secondary market, or there's some facet to cash them out, or like they've announced that they're going public. Fine, that's real money. Anything else, to me, I'm going to zero that out. I'm going to focus on base and bonus only. Of course, you want to negotiate for more of that equity up front, but you also want to make it very clear to them that that equity doesn't carry any value for you personally. I don't know if that answer helped. I hope it did, but yeah, like it's funny money, right? We just simply cannot attribute whatever they're saying to that being real money. And then what you'll get a lot of times in these negotiations is they're talking about their 2, 3, 5-year escalators, and the equity is going to get to here. It's like, you don't know that. You can't tell me that. You can't guarantee me that. What these small startups can guarantee is a high base salary and high bonus target. On the bonus, it is incredibly important when negotiating with a small startup. If they say, hey, the bonus percent is 20% and it's a mix of company and individual performance, that you say, For this role specifically, over the last 3 years, can you tell me what the percentages were? And if they're like, oh, I can't do that, well, I'd really like a ballpark, because even bonus percents at startups sometimes are fake news. So you're really looking at the base, and that's where startups, the base should be higher than other companies that provide equity. And of course, you're trying to get things like a sign-on bonus as well, because a sign-on bonus is real cash in your account. I hope that helps. Okay, it was a slow session today, but thank you to everybody who kept it going. I'm going to go into my wrap-up mode, and then obviously, if any additional questions come up, if you want to talk a little bit more about valuable skills in an AI-driven world, happy to do it. But I didn't know if we'd get to 30 minutes, so getting to 50 minutes is great, and I always appreciate the engagement. Super, super helpful. So thank you, everybody. If you use the code AI, you're going to get 20% off our interview mastery course today. I updated that course with AI modules back in October, and it's killer. It hands down, if you play all out with that course, you're going to do way, way better in your interviews. Our AI interview app, well, we're introducing an app academy to help kind of work you through some of the questions and process. So we're going to be sending out notes to add people to the wait list to start beta testing. This is probably like in the next 2 weeks or so. So that'll be coming out really, really soon. It's a huge, huge lift to the platform. And of course, I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume and LinkedIn. And all of that can be found at practiceinterviews.com. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, and new original long-form content every Monday. I'm going to answer these last questions and then hop off. Thanks so much. Okay, so we got that one. Thank you, Jeff, for your guidance. Been invaluable in my job search. I have loved your AI tool as well. Awesome. I would ask you for a favor. Please, please, please socialize it. I need more socialization of the AI tool. It works. And the reason why it works is because, believe it or not, like 3/4 of the tools don't even give you feedback on your answers. They literally say nothing. They say, it was good, it was bad. You get a gold star, you get a silver star, you get a bronze star, but they don't actually tell you how to improve your answer. And then the other competitors, they just give you a blurb of information. It's overwhelming. We break it down by STAR method for behavioral questions. We're going to break down your situation and task, tell you what to improve. We're going to bring you back to analytics to show you how you're progressing in those areas over time. So anything anybody can do to socialize the tool will be helpful. It's been incredibly expensive, and I still believe in it. And the expense is weighing me down a little bit, candidly, but we'll keep going. Different ideas for giving or showing your abilities for the role. What do you think about giving extended access or coupon codes to new apps or online stores? Yeah, I mean, yes, people like discounts, and sometimes they work, and sometimes a lot of like building up an app is to some sort of like trial or freemium model is also really helpful. Get people on there and using it, and then they realize they like it and they'll want to purchase it. So that's another suggestion. Hey, Jeff, do companies like Google, Apple, and Amazon frequently change their organizational structures? And do they often conduct layoffs? Organizational structures, a little bit, but not really. I mean, they're just so big that like changing the organizational structure is really hard. They may move one team from one product area to another. They might combine product areas, or they might lay off because a product area isn't doing well. But like overall shifting of organizational structures it's just too hard. They're big global companies, so that's difficult. And are they going to conduct layoffs often? 100%. You will see more layoffs. They will continue to happen. They'll probably come in small batches, 500 here, 1,000 here, voluntary here. They're going to keep happening because the jobs are going to get automated, and they're just going to focus in on the bottom line, and we need to be ready for that. Used to work at TikTok, where the organizational structure changed extremely frequently. The constant change has made the working process very stressful and exhausting. Yeah. Big tech is exhausting in general. They'll work you. And I think that's kind of just something that people need to understand. It's not perfect, but again, it's good money, good brand, good perks and benefits. But yeah, you're going to get worked. But I didn't see the organizational structure moving that much in my time in tech. And again, I just think as these companies get bigger, that just becomes harder to do. But for smaller companies, yeah, they're probably going to do it quite a bit. Has Google mostly been hiring internally? I'm not even hearing back from recruiters now, even though I have cleared the GNL and GCA and validated for the next 1.5 years. Had great feedback for the L6 role in the past. I mean, I don't think they're mostly hiring internally. That's never been a practice that I experienced. Actually, to their detriment, I think that in hiring internally is my strongest recommendation. Why? Because it's validation and proof backed by data that that person's actually good. Interviews are, it's such a small snapshot that I'd always rather go with a known entity versus an unknown. I just think they're hiring way less. I mean, I can see it. I can see it in my business. I've seen it in my business for, like, we're going on almost 3 years of this, right? So like once the freeze happened in July of 2022, hiring has slowed down and it's never come back. There's been little spikes or upticks, but just the total amount of people they're hiring is way less. And yeah, I think usually I would say any externally posted position, let's put it at like maybe 20% of those roles, 25% of those roles will be filled by internal candidates. Statistically, I think that's probably a good number. I'm not 100% sure, obviously, but like the way I kind of break it down is I think about 40 to 50% of people who get jobs at these big tech companies, they're sourced or recruited. People are doing active research to find them on LinkedIn or go through the applicant tracking system to find previous people who are good and reach out. Then there's probably 25% are internal transfers. Then 20% have been referred in or networked in, and then the 5% or less are going to be job applications. That's kind of how I break it down, but I think it's a fair breakdown, I hope. Have stock prices affected the hiring, especially in FANG? Sure. Look, the board of directors and the decisions that are made are always going to be influenced by money, right? So they're just trying to make money. So if the company's struggling to make money and earnings, they may hire a little bit less, and that might be the directive or goal that they take. So yes, I do think that they're directly correlated. Like any kind of movements based on like what's happened in the last like week or two, probably that's a little too reactive. But they're always going to be double checking that these roles make sense to hire for now based on the economics. I hope that makes sense. Okay, as we go into wrap up, again, let me just double click on the most valuable skills in an AI driven world. If I were in the corporate world and or looking for a job, especially the latter, like I'm unemployed or I've been laid off and I'm looking for a job, I would spend a minimum of 1 hour a day working on my communication skills, mostly by learning, by reading books or watching online content. I cannot emphasize enough that communication skills will be the biggest game changer when we look at AI. And it's just because we got to go into the science of it, right? And I know some people think I'm getting too woo-woo when I say this, but we're made up of energy. And so when we communicate and exchange with others, there's an energetic exchange. Now that's really happening in person, but it's really important to understand this data point because that energetic exchange is lost with AI. So it's kind of like this basic human convention, this basic human need that people have to have that exchange. And so if you can have those exchanges in a really positive manner, what's going to happen is that positive manner will translate into more success, not only just in the job environment, but in your personal life as well. So I know I've doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on that subject, but I just still think it's the most important one that we need to be focusing in on. And I think that's a great place to end. And we just hit an hour, ironically. So thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I will be back next week at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to throw out a couple of shorts this week as well. Check out our AI app. We're crushing it and would love for you to help socialize it. That would be fantastic. Thanks so much. Have a great day.